let me ask you about its origins, because I know that it started out as a short several years ago. When you produced that short, was it always in the back of your mind that you wanted to expand it to a feature?
Well, yeah, I had always intended. Well, the model that I had sort of seen be successful, with like Wes Anderson and these guys making the short film and adapting it into features. That's kind of all I knew. That was sort of the only way that I thought I could possibly, get a feature made in my 20s, was to hopefully, get people interested with a short. So I had actually started writing the feature the minute I finished editing the short. Or actually kind of while I was editing the short.
And that short did really well. I mean, you played at something like 50 festivals and won all kinds of awards.
Like 50 festivals, and we ended up winning 24 awards or something. And so I thought, oh, this is great. Everything is falling into place, and I got all these meetings in Los Angeles, and then they all said, this is fucking insane. You'll never make this movie, ever. And they were right. No one would, it took about 4 years, and the entire film, the feature Excision, is financed by about 30 of my childhood friends from Virginia and some friends from college in New York. My friends and I just made the movie.
Wow.
No one else would really let us.
Because they were scared of it, do you think, the material?
I mean, certainly, and also I'd only made this short, and it is kind of an out there movie to a certain degree. I mean, I also think it kind of follows more or less like a standard sort of, teen formula, to a certain degree too. But whatever. Yeah, no one's really interested in taking chances like that.
Yeah.
It's funny because except for the actors, their agents, they sure as hell don't want them to get scripts like this, because a lot of times the actors will do it, and it's certainly not financially lucrative for the agent, so they will never pass them stuff like this. But once, John Waters signed on and there's a certain amount of cachet, actors started almost fighting for roles. It was an insane turnaround. For a couple of years I couldn't even get someone to return a phone call, and then all of a sudden there I was. Few people actually wanted to be in something I was making, so it was kind of neat.
Well, I read somewhere where you said that, you wanted to make the kind of film that inspired you early on as a younger man, and I'm wondering what those films were for you.
Well, for me, I would say definitely I loved, The Brood.
Yeah.
Suspiria and Deep Red were, huge. Welcome to the Dollhouse, Happiness. I love that movie, Some Kind of Wonderful, Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, honestly. Then onto Pink Flamingos and,
So that, this is
stuff. The dream sequences are really inspired by Holy Mountain and El Topo and maybe some Cremaster Cycle stuff.
I mean, would you? Those are interesting. Those are interesting influences. I mean, would you say that your sensibility is kind of a cross between a John Hughes and a Cronenberg?
I mean that would be. I think yes, and some people were kind enough to even refer to the movie as a cross between those two, films by those filmmakers, which is, and for me, the greatest compliment in the world.
Mm. Well, tell me about this cast, because, you'd alluded to it a couple of minutes ago. A sensational cast from top to bottom. But I understand that, Waters was an influence for you. What is it like directing such a legendary director? Well,
he is a damn decent person. Whereas someone who, with his kind of success and whatever, would maybe, step in and kind of undermine you. He didn't he didn't have an opinion about anything. He completely respectfully let me run the show because he knows how it is, and he is such a good dude. In fact, when I sent him the script and he called me and he said, "Ricky, this is John Waters," and I was, oh my God, he actually called me back. And he said, "Well, I read the script. It's very strange. I don't fly coach, and I'm not shaving my mustache, but I'm going to do it. And then he just flew out. And, of course, one of my friends got him lost in the car on the way to set. And I had one of my, I literally made this movie with my friends. Half my friends had never touched a camera before. Half my friends, knew this was my dream and had nothing to do with film, but they came out to help out. And one of them, Alex, who got him lost, Sean got the set, and he goes, Ricky, your friend Alex, he's cute as a button, but he's dumb as a bag full of hammers. But John is such a good guy, and even throughout Sundance, he's been so supportive of the movie. In fact, I'm doing a second movie, and it looks like he's going to be in it.
Wow.
Too, in a few months. So he's just been the coolest. It's most of the time, or in my experience, a lot of the time when I've met sort of heroes of mine, they've turned out to be really kind of underwhelmingly arrogant and whatever. But John is just the greatest. I was so thrilled that he lived up to everything I'd sort of built him up to be.
Mm-hmm. And Anna Lynn in this movie is spectacular. I mean, and the character itself is very unique, I found, particularly for this type of genre. I mean, is it challenging for you to write female characters, or did you grow up with women, or how do you know female characters so well?
It's so funny, yeah. It's I get asked. I don't have a sister. I never grew up around any women. I do wear too tight pants, and I used to be fat, so I know what it feels like to have breasts. But other than that, no, man. I didn't even put too much thought into that when I wrote it. I wrote it. I wrote. She's. There's a lot of, I guess, me and Pauline. I don't know what that says about me. I can tell you the reason that my short Excision stars a girl, it would have been a dude, but the best actress I knew in college or the best actor I knew at college happened to be a girl,
mm-hmm.
and I knew that I could rely on that performance for the short, so I wrote the film for a girl for that specific practical reason. And then it evolves into the future. But as far as Anna Lynn's concerned, I didn't want to meet her. It was at this point, where the script is starting to be passed around, and people were actually calling me about it, and I was, which was insane, because I couldn't get anyone to give me the time for years. And I got this call saying this actress, Anna Lynn McCord from 90210, is interested in your movie, and I looked her up. And I was like, fuck no, are you kidding me? We're going to end up making She's All That. This girl is gorgeous. How can I get a misanthropic teen to identify with this girl? And then, they called back and they're like, she really wants to meet you. Just do the meeting. You can say no right after. Just give her the meeting. And I said, okay, of course. So I had lunch with her, and she came in character, and she brought all these pictures of her growing up as a child. And we discussed, her past. I mean, she grew up in a trailer park and sort of ran away and is completely self-made. She's nothing like this sort of Hollywood starlet type. And I remember I said to her, you're going to have to shave your head at the end of this movie. And she took a knife off the lunch table. And keep in mind, I'd known her for 10 minutes by this point, or 20 minutes, whatever it was, and she started chopping her hair off with a steak knife, real hair, in front of me. And,
wow.
By that point I knew this girl was crazy and that I had to cast her.
Yeah, when someone's that committed to that part, to your film, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I called my producer probably 10 minutes after Anna Lynn and I were done talking. I said, get her in this movie, please.
Well, tell me, in terms of the character, I mean, she does some, she's obviously disturbed, she does some disturbing things in the movie, but was it important to you to keep the audience kind of empathetic with her on some level?
Yes.
Yeah.
And to a certain degree, you rely on the sort of underdog factor because, to a certain degree, everyone, no matter what their position is in life, feels like they're the underdog. You know what I mean? They
Mm-hmm.
can always sort of relate to that. Also, you know, there's a lot of, I mean, the film started out being very sort of personal for me. Like I used to have to go to cotillion classes. I've gotten cold sores my whole life. You know, I have been in the unfortunate position of being Jeremy Sumter's character on the wrong end of going down on a young lady on her period and being shocked. And that mirror sequence, which is freshman year of college, is a very rude awakening. So you know, there's all sorts of stuff from my life in the movie all over it. And then when I cast Anna Lynn and Tracy, I actually rewrote certain parts to reflect like their past and their insecurity. Like Tracy's scene on the couch about, you know, she discusses her mother. You know, Tracy and her mother had a very rough relationship, and so we put that in. And you know, Anna Lynn hates her belly button, so we made her character self-conscious about her belly button and showed it. And everything is personalized for all the actors, pretty much.
Yeah. I want to know what it's like, because this is your first feature film that you've directed. I want to know what it's like on your first day of shooting.
You know, man, at that point, once this was like always my dream. Like since elementary school. I mean, I used to go to film camp in high school. You know, this is it. So I was ready, and I sort of knew what I had to do. And by that point, I had established relationships with all my cast before I was perfectly, you know, comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't going to let anything in the world stop me from finishing this movie. Probably slept like 10 hours in a month. You know, I mean, that's an exaggeration, but, you know, it was insane. We almost lost financing several times. We couldn't afford a crew. My crew were freshmen at a film school in Long Beach State. They didn't, you know, the first day I had to show them how to set up C-stands. You know, my editorial assistants were scared to meet me because there was so much yelling, because I had to do a lot of the AD work in between directing, so I had to like lock down the sets and stuff. You know, it's crazy. I almost got kicked out of my apartment while making it because I couldn't afford to put people up in rooms. So I bought a bunk bed and a few other little beds and just threw in my living room. My landlord basically had like a youth hostel for filmmakers over for the summer while we made this. Mm-hmm. Landlord caught us all the sets and the dream sequences we made in my friend's garage. Like no one who watches this movie has any idea how insanely, I guess, ghetto it was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for such a labor of love, though, before I let you go, I wanted to ask about the process of unveiling it to an audience, which you did at Sundance. How did that audience respond to your movie?
It was a fairly good response. I was happy with a lot of the critics at Sundance were really receptive, which made me super happy. But, you know, Sundance, especially that opening week, is much more of a buyer's market. It's a lot of business types. For me, playing at a festival like Fantasia Festival, which we played a month or so ago, 800 people, you know, 800 film geeks, you know, it was amazing. You know, I felt so at home, and they were so receptive to everything in the movie. And for me, that was a really special screening. Sundance made my career. The fact that it was accepted, I mean, I owe Sundance everything in the world. We sold the movie there, you know.
Yeah.
That's where Anchor Bay acquired it. So.
Well, I congratulate you on the movie, and thanks so much for giving me time today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, thank you. This is awesome. So I hope I was slightly entertaining.
You were great. Thank you, man.